Hello all, welcome back to Consciousness Rising, and this is going to be the last video that I make in this current series. So the Consciousness Rising videos that I've started and finished here, I had it very particular in my head where I wanted to get to, and with this episode I've got to that point that I think I'm quite proud of, and I think that's given people enough to rise in consciousness, to do their own research, to feel how they feel about these videos. I think I've done a pretty good job, and I'm quite happy with this. So after this, I'm still going to be doing the from the heart videos occasionally when I feel like it. They're the raw, sort of unscripted talks that I do just when I feel like it. Um, I'm also going to go back to EFT, definitely. That's 100%. You know, the two things that I'm here for, like I said from the beginning, is truth and consciousness growth and healing. I want to put out that healing modality of EFT because it's so damn powerful. I've seen so many people. Luckily, you know, I'm very fortunate in the work that I do. I meet lots of people where I can incorporate EFT with them, and I've seen people release massive stuff from their energetic system because that's what we are. We are energy, um, slowed down to this particular frequency so we can walk this earth plane. Um, And if you've stayed with me this whole lot through this whole all these videos for the last, I think it's nearly a year now, thank you. Thank you for staying with me, and I hope you've got something from it. As I said, I've never ever set out to make any money or fame from this. I've done it because I feel it's the right thing to do, especially in the ignorance that the world's dwelling in. With that being said, let's get started. So, the root of all our problems. In this final offering, I am presenting the root of humanity's problem. The reason why we are in the state that we are in is important to understand. We, as a species, have mostly been stuck in a state of self-loathing because we are unwilling to address our individual and collective shadow. I've said that before, and I stick to that now. Um, Most people, you know, we've been a race for a long time that ultimately hates itself. We're so self-destructive. And the biggest damage that people do, uh, mostly, is to themselves. Because they don't know who they are. They don't know what they are. They don't know their life's purpose. They haven't sat alone for 5 bloody minutes to address these thoughts and feelings that are running through their system, and they haven't dealt with it, you know. And then they go out and they project onto other people, and then thus the cycle continues. Conscious parenting um, is a really important subject to discuss and this is why it's important to address your shadow and the things that went wrong in your past, because then you won't pass it on to the next generation. Because in the next generation is hope, is promise. You know, we have to. I've always thought, and I'm sure I've said it in these videos, that we have to leave the world a better place than what we found it, and that is my goal, my mission. That is it. Nothing else. I just want to leave this place a bit better than what I found it. And if I can, you know, through the work that I do with counselling and EFT and therapy, if I've done that, or these videos, if I've done that in any way, shape, or form, then my life's been worth it, you know. So yeah, we do not. Most people are too scared to sit and address their shadow or society's shadow. You know, we have a collective unconscious, but that's for another day. In essence, all of our psychological problems come down to two things, which are parental abandonment issues and traumatic events. That is it, really. Everything stems from there. I I I, I heard someone say this, and then I thought about my work and my life, and I thought they're bang on. This is it. And nearly all of us have parental abandonment issues. This is something we need to address, because we don't want to pass these issues on to the next generation. Like I said, that's where conscious parenting comes in. If you read the book, The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, which I've spoke about a lot, the last section of the book, I think, he talks about spirituality, and then he talks about conscious parenting, because that is so important. You know, we want a better future for the next generation. So that's it. Parental traumatic events I've covered in EFT. I think it was episode 8 if you look back. Um, but I will be doing more on that. I'm going to be doing some meditations to help you clear those traumas that you're carrying. Okay. Parental abandonment and traumatic events. Some people have a really bad mix of both of them, and they have a really bad start. And but it can be worked on. You don't have to stay where you're at all. Ways in which we're abandoned by our parental figures. Okay, physically, that's quite obvious. A parent can literally leave us physically early in our life. This can be through choice or maybe death. Unfortunately, some people's parents, they die, and that leaves a gaping hole, and that's difficult. That's a trauma in itself. But parents can just leave. They can just go, do you know what? I don't want you. I'm moving on. Or they can abandon us and leave us to be adopted or in a care home. Lots of different ways. But basically, yeah, physically we can be abandoned. It's quite an obvious one. Emotionally, this is key. This is a really big one. Even if a parent is physically there, they may not be able to connect to us on an emotional level. Thus, our emotional needs go unmet. That is huge. That's a really big one. Even and think about your own life. Sit and contemplate the shadow. Did your parents always meet your emotional needs? Were they too busy to meet your emotional needs? Were they suffering themselves and couldn't show that they loved you? That's another thing. Because just because they're parents don't mean they're in touch with their own feelings and emotions, because they're carrying their own stuff. So they might not be able to help you meet those needs because they themselves are suffering. But that's a big one. That comes up a lot with people getting their emotional needs met. And I've put there spiritually. This is where a parent figure does not guide us spiritually. They don't teach us true morality and natural law. They don't teach us right from wrong, true morality, um, you know, and that can lead to all sorts of issues with people because they don't know right from wrong. They don't know who they are. They don't know why they're here. Um, they might not even address those bigger questions, but that's important too. Mind, body, spirit. Our whole essence is more than just the physical. And morality under natural law. I mean, if we could just teach people that, um, the world would be saved in a very short amount of time if enough people got on board, which, I've spoke about in my last video, 51%. Okay, toxic emotional states. Abandonment often leads to deep feelings of shame and guilt. These are very toxic emotions and can hold a person back from fulfilling their own potential in life. Guilt and shame are very toxic. In fact, shame is one of the worst states of consciousness someone can be in, because when you're in shame, it's very, very difficult to get out of. It takes an enormous amount of willpower, but also it takes healing, and again, that's something I'm going to look at on this channel. I'm going to definitely try to address that through EFT. I know I can't work with you all one-to-one. I do work with people one-to-one, and I have a therapy page, which maybe I'll link. But I do want to put some free stuff out there for people that can really get their heads around this and start to use it. Energy medicine, EFT, energy psychology, because the reason EFT works so well is because it is an energy psychology. Okay, so it doesn't just release it physically from the brain. It does do things to the brain. It stops the amygdala shooting fight or flight around the body, cortisol, but it also releases it energetically at an energetic level, and that's what we've been missing for so long on this planet. We haven't addressed our energetic scars. So yeah, I highly recommend this man's work. That book, Homecoming, I learnt so much from that book. I had to read it in college when I was studying to be a counsellor years ago. John Bradshaw, brilliant quote there. Shame is internalized when one is abandoned. Abandonment is the precise term to describe how one loses one's authentic self and ceases to exist psychologically. Okay, so he's talking there, like I've just said, how damaging shame is. You lose who you are as a person, and that potential, it just goes. That book there, Homecoming, is life changing. Not only does he, because it's basically inner child work. Now, inner child work is basically, it's shadow work, but addressing the inner child wounds that we all have. And like I said at the beginning, we all have them. It's not something to be ashamed of. No one's parents were perfect, and as a parent as well, that doesn't mean you need to feel bad as a parent. You can't be a perfect parent all the time. Life is complex, um, but we need to work with this material. We need to grow. We need to heal it at a fundamental level so we can be the best that we can be and strive forward and, you know, help the next generation. That book, brilliant. Get it. Homecoming. Fantastic read. Brings up a lot of stuff, and actually it's good to, if you are in therapy and or you want to do therapy, it's good to do that book alongside your therapy, because I think, if I remember rightly, it's been a few years since I read it, there are some techniques in there and some meditations that he talks about in that book that are very good. This is something I'll bring up, but I definitely I'll talk about this man later in a different video, and when I start my new series, which is just going to be more jumping in and out of things, of different theories. I'm going to do a series on different theories, psychological theories. But David R Hawkins was a spiritual teacher, but also I think he was a psychiatrist. I've just started getting into him quite heavy. I've got a couple of his books, and he developed this map of consciousness, and it's done through frequency. As you see there, it goes from 20, which is the lowest, right up to 1,000. So he says that 1,000 is the highest frequency a human being can emit while in a physical body. So basically, as you see there at the bottom, like I said, guilt and shame. Shame is the lowest state of consciousness a human being can be left in, which, its associated emotional state is humiliation. And how many teachers do that to children? I know I've banged on about that before, but I can tell you, I myself, in secondary school, a couple of times, there was this particular teacher, God, she deliberately would humiliate me in front of the class. And so basically, he calls it in his book, not him, John Bradshaw in the Homecoming book, he talks about toxic shame a lot, and shame is extremely toxic. And this particular teacher done it to me a few times, and would, try and belittle me in front of the other children, and they would all laugh at me, and I felt so ashamed at the time. Don't now, I've released it. In fact, I did some EFT on it a couple of years ago. But yeah, so shame, toxic, and it goes up and up and up and up. We'll talk about this man's work in another video. Because of these deep wounds, many often have no sense of self or cannot take full responsibility for their actions because they're lost inside. They're fragmented, their soul's fragmented, they're psychologically damaged, and as I've written there, often this will result in seeking what's known as proxy parents that we turn to fulfill the empty space of the parental figure and to get our needs met. This is what ultimately leads to a saviour mentality, which I spoke on before, and the belief in authority, which is a massive issue that humanity has had for a long time. So yeah, proxy parents is where you perhaps you had, let's say for instance, a mother figure who could not connect to you emotionally at all. What happens psychologically with children is that they sometimes will seek subconsciously another mother figure to fulfill that role. So they might find an aunt, let's just say, that does connect with them emotionally, and that's where children are amazingly adaptive, because that's quite clever, really. And if you think about that, have you sought proxy parents in your life, where those unmet needs were being unfulfilled and you had to go elsewhere? It's not a bad thing, but it does serve as a problem because ultimately we want to come to that sense of personal responsibility, which I spoke about in natural law. That's very important that we get to that point. But yeah, as I said at the bottom, it ultimately can lead to a saviour mentality and the belief in authority, which is wrong in nature. There is no authority apart from natural law. And they know this. These dark occultists know this. The reason we mostly have the two-party system in politics is because they know of our unmet parental needs, and they appeal to us as being literal proxy parents. Okay, so they want to fulfill psychologically that role. They want to stand in for your unmet mother needs. They want to stand in for your unmet father needs. They know this at a deep psychological level. They know lots about us and our psychology, and they prey on it. They want to be the proxy parents who we turn to. And, if you look at the dynamics of the parties, I don't follow politics at all, so I couldn't tell you which way round it is, but one party is generally more appealing through masculine energy and the other is more feminine. So one takes the role of proxy father, the active side, one takes the passive side, the more feminine aspects. It's done very, very deliberately, and it's very clever in a way. It's completely wrong, but because as I say, they don't have the right to exist. But it basically boils down to what I've put at the bottom: save me mummy or save me daddy. You know, it's throwing away personal responsibility in the hope that someone will look after us because we weren't looked after as children. Really think about that. That's a very deep concept, but it's ultimately true, and I know it's true. So that's where government, you know, and the powers that should not be behind the scenes, that's why it's all set up like that. It's so obvious. The truth is that politics is just giving away personal responsibility, which ultimately leads to slavery. That's been the condition for so long now, and that's what it is. When you don't take personal responsibility and you don't armour your mind and you don't take ownership of your mind, someone will come along and take it for you, and then you ultimately end up in chains. And that's been the problem. Healing. In order to evolve as a species, we must ultimately heal our wounded inner child. Get that book, like I said, Homecoming. Work through it with a therapist. Get an EFT book, learn EFT, or just watch my channel because I'm going to have it coming up. I'm going to really address this because this is where humanity's been broken at a soul level, and we need to refix it. Fix it. I mean, not refix it, but it can be fixed. It can. You know, you are not responsible for what happened to you in childhood. You are, as an adult, responsible for fixing it. That might seem harsh, but it's the truth. You know, we have to take personal responsibility. We have to clean up our own house, which is our own psyche, you know. We can address this by first contemplating, in full honesty, be completely open and honest about what we missed out on in our childhood from our parents. Be really honest about it. Write it down. You know, it doesn't make your parents necessarily bad people. They were probably broken themselves. And then we can integrate this darkness in applying shadow work and EFT, which, you know, that's going to be my main goal after this. I'm going to do some EFT videos, and the other thing I'm going to start is a tarot series. Because I want to start, you know, although I've presented these 17 videos and I've got to the root now, I want to start addressing it and helping you work through it. Because that's what I'm all about, that's what my life's about. And then I'm going to finish off with this. When we heal these parts of ourselves, we can then learn to live in a state of self-love. This will enable us to live in harmony with our brothers and sisters under natural law. This is true spiritual evolution. Okay? Not just sitting on your ass and going, I'm not saying that's, you know, I don't mean to be derogatory for that, because actually if you've got a time and a place for that, there's nothing wrong with that. But true spiritual evolution is what I've come to understand as addressing the shadow. It's so important. We must address our shadow and our deepest wounds. And I put there, I consider this to be one of the most important things to do while we are here. Don't miss out on this. It's so important. This is truly true spiritual evolution. We must know ourselves. We must heal at a fundamental level. And then we can live in harmony with others. You know? And that's it. These 17 videos. I've started to playlist everything, so if you want to, you know, these consciousness rising offerings, they will stop here. I will dip in and out of other theories, but I'll probably call that series something else. I'm going to dip in and out of different psychologists. I might do some stuff on Carl Jung. I like him a lot. I might do some stuff on, like I said, David Hawkins. But this is complete now, this body of work, and I really hope you've got something from it. And yeah, keep following my channel because I've got other stuff coming. It's just not going to be in the same vein. But take care all, and I hope this has been of help. And if you want to share it, share it. In the hope that others may benefit from it as well, because that's what it's for. It's just for your benefit. Okay guys, take care of yourselves. Bye.